And so that's what we'll talk about today, is just sort of trying to find or trying to highlight some of the resources that are available, and then making sure that we provide the encouragement and support for each of you to advocate for yourselves and ask for that support that's needed. So, um, I always like to, I know that everybody is completely different. Everybody has unique stories, but these are some of the biggest challenges I think that we tend to hear about when we are asking folks sort of, what are your concerns? What are your needs? And so I think we always hear from folks that, the emotional impact of a diagnosis can be pretty significant. Lots of different feelings, whether it's fear and, uncertainty, just fatigue from dealing with all the things. We also hear a lot about just transportation or practical and logistical issues. We have folks that are coming from 2 hours away, 3 hours away, and sometimes just getting to the hospital in itself can be a challenge. And so obviously, you have these wonderful care teams, but if you can't get to them, that's a problem. And so we try our best to make sure that we try to eliminate some of those barriers. Um, the financial strain obviously is another big one. When you're going through treatment, sometimes people are out of work for extended times, or you have increased expenses that you had not counted on. And so trying to figure out how to take care of those can be a challenge as well. And then we'll speak a little bit about just the caregivers. That's such an important role, but it can be exhausting at times as well. So there are a lot of different resources for emotional support, and this is just going to highlight a few of those. And so support groups is there in that first category. And so we've, heard from many patients that sometimes just connecting with others, even just as you're doing today, sometimes just connecting and talking to other people who have been through a similar scenario can be really helpful. And there are some in-person options. There are a lot of virtual options. These are just some ways that you might be able to find and get plugged into some of those. So the Kidney Cancer Association, their website's phenomenal. They have a very well organized page where you can get plugged into so many of the resources very easily. Cancer Care is another one that we often use, the American Cancer Society, and then your local hospital, of course. I'm a little bit more familiar with the ones we offer at UNC, but we do have a couple different programs. And I even noticed out on the table, there was a flyer for one of them. Stronger Together is one of the programs that we offer. And this particular one is kind of focused more on wellness and how your life is impacted in that way after a diagnosis. There was also a flyer out there that had a listing of some of our programs that we offer for support. So you might want to grab one of those on the way out. But again, a lot of those programs are offered both virtually and in person. Some people think that support groups are a little bit overwhelming when you're in a large group, but it's sometimes nice to connect with people one-on-one. So the second column talks about peer mentorship programs, and that's basically where you can get connected to one individual who has been through a similar situation. And that way you guys can just kind of have that one-on-one conversation, a little bit smaller scale. And these are two of the organizations that we tend to use. There may be others out there, but you can go to these websites. Emmerman's Angels has an online process for putting your information in. You can kind of say what you're looking for in a peer support, and they will match you with someone that then you can either talk to over the phone, through email, or that sort of thing for support. And then that last column just stresses the importance of just taking care of your mental health while going through treatment. We certainly have programs where you can receive counseling services through the hospital. We also have social workers available for emotional support. We have chaplains that are available. And then if you want to get connected with someone maybe in your own community, Psychology Today is a great resource for finding someone that's local that may be able to provide the support that you need. All right. Um, so you just heard about how important it was to exercise. And so taking care of well-being in that capacity is, as Mary said, really important. There's a lot of research about the benefits of exercise during treatment. And of course, when we tell people about these programs, the first thing we say is obviously you want to talk to your provider first to be sure that this is something that's appropriate for you. But in most cases, doing some type of exercise is beneficial for folks. And so these are some of the programs that we would recommend. Live Strong at the YMCA is a 12-week program. It is free. and it is really designed to help sort of build both mental and physical well-being after treatment. I think I just said that. It's a free program, but you also get a membership to the Y while you're going through it. So it's really, really a nice program. They typically start sessions kind of first thing in the spring, first thing in the fall. So if you're interested, going ahead and getting on a wait list or, just making sure that you are plugged in with them so they can call you the next time they have one of their sessions to start is a good plan. And then we have Get Real and Heal, which is offered at both UNC and Rex. And so that is also a 12-week program where we offer either virtual or in-person classes. I know it's hard when you don't live right in Chapel Hill to do the in-person classes. So I'm grateful that we have the virtual option that folks can take advantage of. But that's really where you get to meet with an exercise physiologist. They do an assessment, kind of give you a plan that's appropriate for you, and then kind of guidance and support along the way. But it's also another opportunity to build community because you are with other patients who are going through treatment. And then I'm not as familiar with the program at Duke, but I did go on the website and they do have a virtual exercise program as well. So, all right. Okay. And again, this is an area, as I said earlier, where we get probably the most requests for assistance. Transportation is always a big one. And so one particular program that I will highlight is the American Cancer Society's Road to Recovery program. It's kind of driven by volunteers. And so basically what you all would do if you needed a ride is to reach out, set up your account, and then let them know when your appointments are. They then check with the volunteers in the area. If there's someone available, they'll let you know, of course, at least 24 hours in advance. And so that is an option. Also, there are a lot of local, or I guess sort of county specific resources available. Like Lee County has something called Highway to Healing, which is also a volunteer based program, but they're phenomenal and they almost always come through when we reach out to them for support. Some of the transit programs do go county to county, so that's another option as well. Sometimes churches will have transportation ministries where you can reach out and see if they offer assistance as well. But our job is to help folks talk through that and figure out what's going to work best for them to be sure they can get to the hospital and get the treatments that they need. Again, if you're coming from a long distance, sometimes you may need a place to stay either overnight or, if your treatments are multiple days in a row. And so these are some lodging resources that we always offer. MedStay can give sort of a discounted rate for when you're coming for a hospital stay. The ACS, or American Cancer Society Lodging Program, has an extended stay program. I think the closest one here is in Durham. And then there are also certainly local and hospital-based resources. For us at UNC, we use the State Employees or SECU Family House. It's about a mile from the hospital. Typically, the rates there are going to be a little bit less than your standard hotel. I think it's currently $54 a night for the SECU Family House, and they do have a shuttle that can bring folks from there over to the hospital and back and forth for treatments. All right, and then that next column talks about just kind of the help at home, because obviously if you're spending the day at the hospital and then you get home and you're like, oh my gosh, what's for dinner? There are certain programs that can help with meals. A lot of times, if you can enlist the help of friends and family, there are some things like the Meal Train and those online tools where you can organize your supports that way. I've listed Meals on Wheels. Obviously, they do have some criteria for how to qualify for that, but it is one of the organizations we often recommend folks look into. Lasagna Love is one of those things that's just sort of a one-time delivery, but it's really nice that they have these homemade meals, volunteers in various communities where they show up with this wonderful plate of food. And so again, if you've been at the hospital all day or just not feeling great, don't want to fix a meal, sometimes that can be a really nice resource to utilize. And then Cleaning for a Reason is up there as well, because oftentimes we will hear folks talk about that fatigue that Mary had mentioned. They're like, I can't even keep up at home. I can't, vacuum the floors or do the laundry or whatever it may be. And so Cleaning for a Reason is an organization that can offer up to 2 free home cleanings, kind of helps get you back on track, or, maybe when you're in the midst of that fatigue that you're really battling with, that's a good resource that we can look into just to help you with some of those tasks at home. All right, so financially, obviously, going through treatment can create a huge financial burden sometimes for certain individuals, whether it's high copays or being out of work or, changes in income, that sort of thing. But hospitals do have some assistance programs available, both for financial assistance and pharmacy assistance. They do require certain criteria and an application process. So we always encourage folks to start that pretty early because it usually takes 5 to 6 weeks for the application to be processed and approved. Um, Sometimes you'll get a notice back that, oh, you're missing this one document and you've got to resubmit. So it can certainly take a little bit of time. But who can help you? We've got financial navigators on site as well as that you can call. We have social workers that can help with sort of walking through that process, as well as patient navigators that can help you with that. There are, of course, national organizations, outside organizations that have some supports available as well. Some of these organizations offer kind of just a one-time stipend that may help. Most often folks use it for gas or for parking or for food or some of those extra expenses that they had not anticipated. And then some of those, like the Patient Advocate Foundation, they offer copay assistance. So many times they'll offer grants that will, up to, a few $1,000s that may be able to help with some of the out-of-pocket expenses that you might have, or possibly even insurance premiums and things of that nature. And those are all application process. We as navigators can help, certainly guide you through that as well. And then caregiver support. Caregivers have such a huge job. We're so very grateful for the support that they always offer. We talk about self-care, and I know it's always easier said than done when we say you've just got to take care of yourself. You've got to take a minute, but sometimes that can be really hard. So there are some support groups available. I know a lot of them are, or most of them, I will say, are virtual at this point. I know some of the organizations, you can go online and find the supports that way. There's also the Caregiver Action Network, as well as the Alliance for Caregiving, that can offer supports. But that last tab there just sort of gives some suggestions for self-care, the setting boundaries, setting goals for yourself, asking for help when it's needed, and then just really trying to figure out what are your personal coping strategies. Is it taking a walk? Is it calling a friend? What can you do to care for yourself? All right. And so sort of I guess the key takeaways are that there are resources that are available for both patients and caregivers. You really it's a matter of asking for help. And so we always encourage communication with the treatment team, making sure that you're letting your providers know, your nurse navigator know, whoever that might be, just so that we can get you plugged into the appropriate supports, and just ask for help at each step of the way.